I'm Clayton Walters, and today on UNI-TV, we have Congressman Bruce Braley here with us, and we're going to have a nice discussion on gun control. So first off, I want to focus on what's going on here in Iowa. There's been, obviously strong opposition on both sides for and against, and a lot of the politicians seem nervous to act and seem like they're going to wait for a federal action. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there is legislation that's been introduced in both the House and the Senate and Congress on various aspects of how you can get a handle on reducing gun violence. And I think rather than focusing on gun control, we should be talking about gun violence because that's what gets all of the attention in the press. And I have two good friends in Washington who were dramatically impacted by that. One represented Aurora, Colorado, scene of one of the most recent mass killings. He also represented Columbine in the state Senate in Colorado. And another friend of mine represents a district in Connecticut that's about 50 miles from Newtown, Connecticut. And the thing that we've always had a struggle with is bringing people together from very different viewpoints to address how we can reduce gun violence. It is not a single issue problem that we're trying to solve. So I've always felt you have to focus on all aspects of what's contributing to that, including how we grant permits to people who are purchasing guns, how we do background checks, what type of magazines we are selling and allowing them to use, and what type of mental health challenges we face so that people who have serious mental illnesses that should disqualify them from owning guns don't get access to them.
Both sides obviously want to save lives, and so is there a middle ground that, for and against can agree in meeting this goal?
There is, and the problem is when you try to deal with this on a national stage, you get a lot of very loud people who are trying to push an agenda. For me, it's easier to solve problems the way you would do it here in Iowa, which is you'd sit down with your friends and neighbors, many of whom have very different opinions on how you should solve this problem, and you talk through them. You talk about all these contributing factors, and you listen to people whose point of view may be different than your own. The Second Amendment is an important part of our Bill of Rights. It has limits to its application, and rational people can look at those limits and try to come up with solutions that allow people who enjoy gun ownership, who enjoy hunting and the right to protect themselves, to be able to do that, but to do it in a way that doesn't infringe upon the rights of others, and that's the tough challenge we face.
What is the greatest obstacle in reaching the goal that we are trying to get to today?
The greatest obstacle is getting people to listen to each other and to hear each other's point of view and to acknowledge that both sides or all sides of these issues have legitimate points, and then you have to sit down to bringing people together around these issues by recognizing this is all of our problems. It's not just one person's problem or Congress's problem or the state legislature's problem. We are all impacted by gun violence in our culture, and we have to look at all the factors that are contributing to it.
The initial talks seem to be similar of the 94 assault weapons ban, including banning some certain models. How has that changed since, and where is it at today?
Well, I talk to a lot of people who are very committed to taking concrete action to reducing gun violence, but they care more about the practical impact of these limitations than on descriptions of certain types of guns and weapons. So the real important thing is, what are you using the weapon for? What type of capacity does it have to do harm to other people? Is it necessary for hunting and self-defense? And you can build a solution to many of these problems by having a rational conversation about all those factors.
How will new parts of legislations coming out, how will that prevent things like the Newtown massacre?
Well, the thing we should be focusing on is providing reasonable safeguards so that people who shouldn't have guns, criminals, people with severe mental illness who are not capable of making determinations that might injure someone else or themselves are not getting access to those weapons. At the same time, I don't think anyone who hunts in this state would tell you that they need a 110 round magazine to be able to hunt in this country. And so what you have to do is look at whether the purpose of these is to achieve reasonable results that the Second Amendment anticipates, or if there's more we can do to make sure we're protecting people from the type of violence that we've seen in these cities where the death toll seems to keep getting higher and higher.
So do you have anything else to say about the assault weapons and gun control in general?
Well, I think that the most important thing is for Iowans to engage each other with the conversations we've been talking about here today. The biggest problem is people don't talk to each other, they talk at each other. And I know that these issues are serious to many, many people that I represent. They're passionate about them, and we should be able to be polite enough to listen to each other so that we can come up with comprehensive solutions to reduce gun violence in our culture.
Alrighty, thanks Bruce Braley.
Thank you.
For UNI-TV, I'm Clayton Walters.